If you told me before I started my MBA how hard recruiting was going to be, I might end up not doing it. I might end up not doing MBA altogether. I'm not even kidding. I remember when I first started my MBA, I was thinking to myself, recruiting is going to be easy. I'm smart, I have a unique background. Surely I can find a job that I want, right? But as the day goes by, I began to realize that everyone who made it to the MBA is smart. Everyone has a unique background. So I really needed to strategize differently to set myself apart. Today I'll talk through some of these ups and downs in my MBA recruiting journey. Why did they happen? How they shaped my recruiting strategy? And I will also walk you through my entire MBA recruiting experience. Every step of the way, from the moment I arrived at Cornell campus to where I am right now as an Amazon finance manager. When I first arrived at Cornell campus in July of 2019, I would say that the first 3 months are kind of the honeymoon phase. I was just really excited to be back to being a student again. I was having fun, getting to know my new classmates, and joining all kinds of gatherings. I think at that time, recruiting honestly barely crossed my mind. This was the time you kind of notice that there are 2 different types of classmates in the cohort. So the first group are the ones who came to MBA with a clear goal in mind. They kind of know exactly what industry they want to recruit for, what type of companies that they are aiming for. They are laser focused and they start their preparation really early. You will already be seeing them on campus, talking to second years, scheduling coffee chats with student services, and reaching out to alums to network during the first or 2 months of the MBA. And the second group of classmates are people like me who basically have no idea what's going on, have no idea what they want to recruit for, and generally in a wait and see mode to see what other people are doing and just prepare to follow the crowd. So all in all, in those 3 months, I did no recruiting activities whatsoever. And September to early October was when recruiting really started to ramp up. You'll start to see companies coming to campus for on-campus recruiting, sending their alums for company presentations. We as MBA students will start to dress in suits. And on an average week, I would say that we can attend up to maybe 3 to 5 company presentations, typically held at night, where companies basically will be sending their alums to Cornell Johnson campus, where they will introduce the different type of internships and full-time roles that they are recruiting for. So all this time throughout October and November, I was just mindlessly attending company events. Not so much that I was really interested in any particular company, but more so due to the fear of missing out. And this was also the period where I not necessarily found out what I want to recruit for, but more of found out what I did not want to recruit for, and that was investment banking and consulting. So from talking to alums to second years and to classmates, I knew I definitely do not want to recruit for IB and consulting. Because first of all, their recruiting process was really intense and their work hours will be pretty bad, especially for IB. And most importantly, these industries just did not interest me. So that basically left me with tech and general management. It's funny to think that I narrowed down my path based on elimination. This kind of showed that how underprepared I was back then. From October to early December, those 3 months, I think I lost count how many company presentations that I attended. And this was also the period where tech companies like Google and Amazon came down to campus for on-campus recruiting. I still remember when I saw some of the Cornell Johnson alums working in those companies giving us presentations. Boy, I was envious of them. I was thinking, if only one day I can be one of them, life would be complete. Honestly, looking back, Johnson's tech recruiting was pretty underwhelming. I think the big name tech companies that came down to campus were just Google and Amazon. That's it. Our school is more known for being a finance school, so IB recruiting is really strong, but tech, definitely not a strong suit. During this period, honestly, there's not too much action going on for tech and general management recruiting because most of the interviews are in spring semester. So some of the main things I did was to submit my internship applications to some of the bigger name tech companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, IBM, Walmart. Most of these bigger name companies have structured internship programs, so their application due date are pretty early. So it's important to not miss the deadline and go to get those done. At this point, the pressure of recruiting hasn't really dawned on me yet. I'm not sure why I just did not have the sense of urgency yet. Maybe I was overconfident, I don't really know. So in terms of general recruiting preparations, such as talking to second years, reaching out to alums, and doing case practices, I would say I was doing way less than most of my other classmates who were serious about recruiting. Honestly, my mentality at that point in time was still really excited just to be back being a student again, having fun, going on gathering with classmates. That was like my main focus at that point in time. Winter break arrives, and that was when my mind shifted more towards recruiting. So I joined a bunch of my classmates to go on a 6-day West Coast Tech Trek, whereby we will spend 3 days in the Bay Area, 3 days in Seattle, visiting all the top tech companies in those regions. Some of the tech companies that we visited are Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, LinkedIn, Salesforce, Intel, and many others. I definitely put in a lot more effort in terms of networking at that point and actively chatted with all the Johnson alums I met during that trip. And the goal of this networking is basically like you can have a chance to arrange future coffee chats with them when you need their help, to give you referrals. So this was the time when 2 major recruiting events happened for me. So first of all, I received Amazon's online assessment, meaning I got through their resume screening phase. I remember many of my other classmates received the online assessment as well. Basically, it's like a 2-hour online survey asking you to choose how you act or behave in different work scenarios. And in that online assessment, I was also asked to rank the different MBA programs that I want to apply for. The funny thing is, I did not even rank finance as my top choice at the time. I think I kind of wanted to have a change of scenery after doing finance for so many years. So I remember putting Retail Leadership Development Program as my top option and maybe FLDP as my second or third option. And this was also a time whereby I received my first official interview invite, and that was from Google for their summer financial analyst internship. I have a whole separate video on my Google interview experience, so I wouldn't really go into detail in this video. But in summary, basically I over-invested in this one interview and spent my entire winter break preparing for it every single day, which in hindsight I regretted. That was really dumb actually, because there is a diminishing return in how much you can prepare for one interview, and overdoing it actually doesn't really help most of the times. I had my interview with Google in middle of January, and by then I was already back in Cornell campus waiting for the semester to start. And as you all know, I did not do well for the interview. Not so much that I did not prepare enough. I mean, I prepared a ton, but more like Google's interview are not meant to be prepared. Some of their quantitative and math questions are meant to test your ability to perform logical thinking on the spot. And it's really a test of talent, not hard work, I would say. Maybe I'm not talented enough to get into Google. And as you all know, I took my rejection really hard. I was extremely devastated after that rejection. And it was kind of a wake-up call for me, telling me that, hey, time is running out. You really need to start taking your recruiting seriously. So I think from late January to early March, this was the 2 months whereby I spent the most effort in recruiting. It was the most intense 2 months for me. It's hard not to have a sense of urgency when you see all your consulting classmates busy with on-campus interviews every single day, and you are just sitting around with no action whatsoever. So within the span of these 2 months, I think I applied to close to 50 different companies. And at that point, no companies are coming to campus for presentations anymore. There is no more structured guidance from the school in terms of recruiting. It's really up to me now. Basically, I was going on to school's job portal to apply to any job that didn't fit, as long as they roughly fall into the tech and general management space and they are open to hire international students. Looking back, I really did not have a strategy. I was honestly just spamming to increase my odds of landing an interview. I even went as far as, I remember applying to multiple jobs within the same companies. I probably applied to 8 different roles in Adobe, which later on I realized that it's actually a bad thing to do. It in fact decreases your odds of landing a role with that company. The stressful part of this period was that tech recruiting's timeline was really late. So by the time you are heading into March, most of your IB and consulting classmates are already done with their recruiting and have mostly landed a job. So it's only left with the folks who are either recruiting for tech or classmates who did not land a job in IB and consulting and had no choice but to pivot to tech. I wouldn't say I was desperate at that point, because second years were telling us that tech recruiting typically ramp up very late. For them last year, many of them received tons of interview in late April or even early May, to the point that they have to turn down interviews because companies hire a lot just in time. But deep down, I was actually silently panicking, because from the time when Google rejected me to like late February, all I received were rejections from different companies and not a single interview invite. So I was like thinking to myself, am I doing anything wrong? Is there something wrong with me? Just when things start to feel more and more dire heading into March, on literally the final day of February, And I remember this day very clearly. I received my FLDP interview invite from Amazon. Not gonna lie, like this really rekindled my motivation, something I much needed at that point of time. The funny thing is FLDP wasn't even my top choice. It was RLDP. Amazon probably sent out interview invites more based on your profile and your past experiences. The next week leading up to the interview was definitely the most intense week I experienced in my MBA. After that Google blunder, I really did not want my opportunity with Amazon to slip. I want to make sure I was really fully prepared and have the right mindset going into the interview. So basically, I spent the next couple of days being laser focused in this one task, scheduling multiple coffee chats with second years who have been through the Amazon interview process, and reaching out to alums that I networked with during the tech track. Basically, I got them to walk me through the entire interview structure and the things that I should be preparing for. I also spent hours a day reading about Amazon's leadership principles, which everyone was telling me that is really important for the interview. And for the remaining time, I recapped my interview fundamentals, brush out on my past, and make sure that I have at least one good story for every leadership principle. I also did several rounds of mock interviews with second years. All in all, that week was really intense. I felt that I did everything that I could within a short period of time. My interview was on March 5th. Amazon's MBA interviews are typically like super days, whereby it's a 4-hour plus of back-to-back interviews virtually with different interviewers. To ensure that absolutely nothing goes wrong, I decided not to do my interview in my apartment this time because my apartment's internet was pretty choppy. And what I did was I booked a meeting room on campus to ensure that there is absolutely no risk of technical failure. I will not go into the specifics of the interview, but basically that 4.5 hours went by in a flash because I was like so tunneled in to this one activity. I was so laser focused. Time really passed pretty quickly, I remember. Having 4 back-to-back interviews with different interviewers was really exhausting, but thankfully I was pretty well prepared this time, bringing like snacks, bananas, Red Bull and coffee so that I can like replenish my energy during breaks. Overall, I thought that the interview went really well because I felt I fully demonstrated the leadership principles through my stories, and most importantly, I can feel that the interviewers were engaged. One interesting fact that went on was that was the first day when COVID became really serious in Seattle, and Amazon company-wide asked their employees to start working from home. And so basically, some of my interviewers were figuring out their work from home setup for the first time at the start of the interview, making the interview more candid and relaxed. Several days later, on March 10th, without any surprises this time, I received my internship offer from Amazon. As I reflect on my journey, if I had received the offer from Google, I would honestly attribute a huge portion of it to luck. But when I secured Amazon's offer, I knew I earned it because I really put in the work. Coincidentally, the very next day after I received Amazon's offer, Cornell announced school-wide lockdown, asking students to stay at home because COVID became really serious in the East Coast as well. So I was initially intending to go to school to brag to my classmates, but I guess I'll just silently celebrate my success. And after that day, somehow a few other interview invites started to come in from companies like Autodesk and a few other smaller tech companies, which of course I turned down. The awaiting part in March and April was also an agony because we MBA students were so paranoid that companies will pull back their offer due to COVID. Thankfully, most companies did not put back their offer, but of course, internship became virtual. So instead of flying over to Seattle over the summer, Amazon mailed laptop, monitor, and other work from home setup to our apartment, and I will basically be spending my summer in Ithaca doing the internship virtually. I do have a separate videos on my learnings during the internship, but in summary, the internship was also very stressful. Not so much the internship itself, but more of what was at stake. Like, I knew how important it was for me to secure the written offer. I basically went all in during the internship to perform as well as I can, striving to over-deliver every step of the way. And thankfully, my 10 weeks of internship went really well. I secured the written offer, and I can finally officially conclude my MBA recruiting journey. If there's one thing that I learned from this whole experience, I would say that to get into top companies, good is not enough. You have to be the best. Like, I'm not even saying it in a bragging way, I really mean it. Having an average or above average performance in your recruiting or interview is not good enough to get you into top companies. There's so many candidates out there, and companies like Google, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, they are really out there looking for the best. And looking back at my Amazon interview, I felt that I performed so well that there is no chance that I will have not been accepted. Hope this video gives everyone a perspective of how MBA recruiting and tech recruiting really works. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll see you guys in the next video.